All righty. We are live. Before we get fully started, I'll give it a couple of minutes and then we will dive into this blowout of a win. So to get things started, let me introduce a friend of the channel. He's been on these live streams before, especially during last year's finals run. So let me introduce my friend and guest of the show, Supermariohoops24. The links are down below in the description. How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. Just finished watching the Suns, watched my Bulls take a dub, so that was good. We watched some controversy with the Lakers, so that's always good. Unfortunately, they won, but
right.
It is the Pistons after all. So, What are you going to do?
Yeah, man. Lots to talk about tonight for everyone who is just joining us. Obviously, we will break down this game, although there's really not too much to break down. We will do our best to break it all down, and then we're going to talk about the LeBron and Isaiah Stewart Pistons fight, and then we're going to talk about the Sacramento Kings firing Luke Walton. We might do some NBA hot takes. We'll see. I think I have at least one hot take. And if you guys have any hot takes in the chat, let me know. And then we'll just open it up for conversation. So if you guys got any questions in the chat, any comments, any takeaways, please let me know. Go ahead and just leave those in the comment section down below. But yeah, speaking of, it's a celebration because the Phoenix Suns have won 12 in a row. And I was sick for about a week. And I haven't really had a beer in a while. So I was like, you know what? If the Suns win this game, I'm going to have a beer tonight. I don't know what you're drinking, but I was like, you know what? Let's celebrate. I don't know about you, but I'm off work for a week because of Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving holiday and all that. So I'm like, you know what? I want to crack open a beer. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Cheers to the Phoenix Suns' 12th win in a row. Oh, yeah. All right, so it's already been a couple of minutes. I did my long little introduction, had to hold it down for a little bit. So let's just dive right into this. Phoenix Suns just absolutely blow out the Denver Nuggets tonight, 126-97. And let's just talk about the first quarter. Really, that was kind of the story right there. There are some things to take away, especially in that third quarter, which we will get to. At the end of the first quarter, it was 48-28. The Suns had shot 77%. They had 16 assists. I think they had 20 assists by halftime, which is absolutely insane. And they had 17 made field goals. I think they closed out the first quarter on a 34-14 run. So I guess I'll just start with your takeaways and thoughts of this game in its entirety. What did you think of this game? Was this game kind of a snoozer? Any takeaways? What do you think?
I wouldn't say it was a snoozer, simply because, well, of course, getting up 20 in the first quarter, it seemed like that to start off. I believe it was, I saw on Twitter, I think it's the second highest first quarter scoring in Suns history.
Yep. Second highest in franchise history, which is insane. 48 points.
And the other one that was above it was against like the 1990 Denver Nuggets. Yep. And if people know those teams, they were just like running and gunning. I think I have the box score of that game. The final score was 173-143. Ooh. And the Suns in the first half, because they had the highest scoring quarter ever there and the highest scoring first quarter, they had 107 points in the first half of that game. So the fact that it's only below that, I mean, I think it says a lot about like how they came out playing so well. I think they did a good job early on at realizing that, okay, Nikola Jokic isn't playing. So we need to take advantage of DeAndre Ayton. And they got the ball like 4 or 5 times right away. And he was, converting on them. I think in the second quarter and third quarter, they kind of got away from it. And it was actually opening up the 3-point shot. Because I looked at one point, they made 8 of their first 9 3-pointers in the game. Then they missed the next 14 straight. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think that they kind of got away from that. Like, it was whatever. But, I mean, they did still pull it off at the end. I think the fourth quarter was solid. They had a good end of the third quarter. But, that 18-minute chunk probably from the start of the second to the middle of the third was a little bad.
Yeah.
And Chris Paul, again, like another game where he has 10 assists and 0 turnovers. He has the most games like that in NBA history where he has 10 plus assists and 0 turnovers. That's why they call him the point guard. So overall, I mean, it was a pretty good win. I think there maybe was a few messy parts in there, but I mean, getting the W, it's always pretty good.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that you brought that up. And I guess that's kind of my only negatives of this game. I mean, I could probably dive deeper and nitpick a lot, but there was a pretty bad stretch there. And I think you pretty much summed it up. Really, I guess it was kind of a sloppy third quarter for me. I think you mentioned this. I think the Suns had missed like 14 threes or something like that. Basically, in Suns terms, they're playing with their food, which they've done that a lot this season. That's obviously not the way I would want my team to be playing, and I'm sure Monty Williams probably got on them for it. There was even a small 5-minute stretch in the third quarter where the Nuggets were really good, and I give the Nuggets credit. They kept attacking. At one point, I think the game was a 13-point game, and but they were obviously very shorthanded. And I give props to DeAndre Ayton, who attacked and 21 points tonight, 8 rebounds, 9 for 12 from the field. Took advantage of no Nikola Jokic. I do wonder if they had Jokic and we still would have put 48 points in the first quarter if Jokic still would have been effective. I mean, he's, the MVP of the league and, putting up MVP numbers again this season. But yeah, I guess that's really my only gripes and nitpicks is just that the Suns kind of played with their food. Sloppy third quarter. And I don't know if it really came down to a small stretch in the second quarter where just the Suns, I don't really know if it was the Suns' fault or if it was just the Nuggets just playing better defense, having better effort. I don't know. Did you see anything late in that second quarter that might have kind of, like the Nuggets playing better, or do you just think the Suns just weren't as hot as they were in the first? Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but personally for me, I think that they just kind of got away from what was working at the start.
Yeah.
Because you got to realize when they went out there today to start, I think they had JaMychal Green at the 5, and he's not going to be able to stop DeAndre Ayton inside. So what does that do? That brings guys more in, and then as a result, like the perimeter is going to be more open. This is why their 3-point shots weren't falling, and I think like this is kind of like what they missed Jokic for. Like, yeah, everyone knows Jokic can put up a triple-double. He can drop 30 points. He can be the best playmaker, one of the best in the league. But I think today they might have missed his defense maybe a little bit more, especially, 48 points in a quarter. Like, clearly you're not playing much defense there. But I wouldn't even say that the Suns played great defense. I think rather than outplaying them, they just outscored them. Now in the second half, it was a lot better, but they even though they were winning like pretty much throughout the whole game, they gave up 60 points in the first half. So that's like on pace for 120. That's more than pretty much any team averages so far this year. So that's kind of a concern there. I don't think it's a long-term thing, but like just a little something that they could have fixed.
And like this, especially in today's basketball, really the past 5 years or whatever, maybe even longer than that, no lead is safe in the NBA. This is a 3-point era. And I even tweeted it out during the game. I said that no lead is safe, especially when you're the Phoenix Suns. I will say this though, the Suns closed the third quarter out, I think, on a 17-4 run. But I don't know, just a lot of this game didn't really feel safe. And you might be right. I mean, it might have just been a bad defensive effort by the Suns, because even in that amazing first quarter, it just felt like the Nuggets kept scoring. And I brought that up earlier. I said the Nuggets kept on attacking. And even though there were some really bad stretches for the Suns and good stretches for the Nuggets, I feel like they just – and that's why I brought up that third quarter. The end of the third quarter was 17-4 run, like I said, just – the Suns just didn't really let the game get too out of hand. I really wish I had more takeaways from this game. I mean, I'll just say this. There was a timeout called late in the fourth quarter, and Michael Malone looked pissed. That's all I got to say. Like, they were showing him on the screen. Hey, I'm sure he's going to dive into his team tonight and get into them. And but, yeah, I don't really know what else to say. Like, it was just a nice blowout win for the Suns, and I'm glad they got the W. I do kind of want to go over the stats. I know that we're kind of like pushing through this. I mean, we're barely 11 minutes in, and I feel like we've already said everything we needed to say about this game. But let's go ahead and look at the stats here. The Suns shot 53% from the field from this game. Surprisingly, both teams shot pretty damn close from three. It wasn't the best three-point shooting night for the Suns. 30% from the Suns, nearly 29% for the Nuggets. 88% from the free throw line for the Suns. Suns win the rebounding battle 50-41. Suns had 33 assists. And I've said this a lot. I said, I don't care what team you are in the NBA. If you have 30 assists or more, you're probably going to win the game. And I think I mentioned this earlier. Suns had 20 assists at halftime. That's got to be a big stat for the game. Were there any numbers in particular for you that stood out?
I mean, I guess one of the biggest ones is probably the bench scoring because
thank you for bringing that up. Thank you.
28 points for Denver, and the Suns literally doubled that. I think three guys in particular. Well, first of all, JaVale McGee was going off like it seemed like early on. And then, I mean, Cam Johnson kind of throughout was playing pretty well. He was shooting insane. And then also it seemed like, Cameron Payne didn't shoot well from the field, but it seemed like he was doing a lot of good things in the game. I mean, he kind of was the instigator as to why like Aaron Gordon like got into it with the official. So there's that as well. So I don't know. I think that the bench did their part. And I think that was kind of key to the win. It was key to getting off to a good start in like the first quarter.
Thank you for bringing that up and kind of saving me there, because I do want to talk about the bench and I do want to talk about the officiating afterwards. Let me just read you some bench numbers. Kind of like you mentioned, Cam Johnson had a great game and he really needed it. I think he had a good game last game too, but he had 22 points in 23 minutes on pretty efficient shooting. He was pretty bad from 3, 4 for 10, but finished the game 9 for 15 overall. It's a pretty damn good game. And he was aggressive too. It wasn't just the 3-pointers. He was attacking the rim, doing a lot of great things out there. And this was a big time Cam Johnson game that he really needed. I think I said that last live stream too. But then you mentioned JaVale McGee, 10 points, 4 rebounds. And JaVale McGee, this is exactly why we signed him. He has games like that, even if it is just a simple 10-4, or I think one game he had like 14-6. That's why we signed him. We signed him to be aggressive, to get rebounds, score points, do those little hook shots that he's been doing, believe it or not, taking notes from Kareem. And he's been great for us. And I mean, the bench points were huge, because you look at the Nuggets side, not too many bench points for them. I think it was Austin Rivers who had 10 points off the bench in 28 minutes. He was their highest off the bench for them. But I mean, obviously they were down 3 of their best players. And I will kind of say this. I wonder if Nikola Jokic was playing. I don't think they would have won, but I wonder if the outcome still would have been the same, if we would have had a great first quarter. Obviously he would have helped, but that was really good. Now, the officiating, and I've been a defender of the referees this season. I can't believe I just said that, but I have been. Wasn't that great tonight? I was kind of trolling on Twitter, and I said, the Suns are playing against 9 Denver Nuggets and a side of referees. It was pretty bad. I think Ayton got into foul trouble early. I think JaVale McGee got into foul trouble. I'm looking at the fouls right now for, the Suns had 20 fouls. Nuggets had 22. But it kind of felt like the Suns had more in a way. Maybe it was just bad timing. Aaron Gordon got ejected, and I saw Mike Malone, complaining to the referee, and just one of those bad officiating nights. Did you have any other takeaways on the Suns bench and or the officiating?
I mean, for the officiating, well, just like obviously looking at the stat sheet, 26 and 28 free throws on both sides, and 42 combined fouls called, which is a lot, especially since, the rule change is implemented now. Now, I wouldn't say that I necessarily noticed much with the officiating, but then again, I was over here watching like 3 games at once. So maybe I did miss some, but I guess like what I will say though, is that like, just by looking at the box score here, every single player that played for the Suns had like a positive plus minus, and then every single player on the Nuggets had a negative plus minus, and both teams had like at least 12 guys play. So I just kind of wonder like how many times that's happened in NBA history.
I know. I'm glad you brought that up. That's why you're on the show, so you can help me keep track of stuff like this. That's definitely interesting. We might have to.
Because like sometimes like when the third string or like some of the second string comes in like late in the games, like they'll blow the lead a little bit, but
Yep.
nah, like even like the Ish Wainwrights and
Yep.
the Chandler Hutchinson, former Bull, even those guys were doing their job. So
I'm glad you brought that up. This was another game where the Suns second unit or their bench played very well, and the Suns bench was not playing very well to start the season. And that's why I keep preaching about Cam Johnson and how he really needed to get it going and is getting it going. And I was talking to Matthew over the Suns Jam Session podcast about this. He was kind of talking about how when him and Mikal Bridges have minutes, they feed off each other pretty well. I don't even really know what Mikal Bridges did tonight because this was honestly the Cam Johnson game that he needed.
He started off pretty good, I think, but then I think he just was like, I think he scored. Didn't he score like all 8 of his points in the first quarter?
Probably, and that's kind of why I bring up Mikal Bridges, because we win a lot of games when he scores a lot of points. Jay Crowder had a really good first quarter. I think he had 8 of our first whatever points it was. But yeah, it's just my point being is that when Cam Johnson has a really good game off the bench, it's a good night for the Suns. We played as a team tonight. You were talking about the bench warmer guys even getting points and playing minutes, like Jalen Smith and all those other guys. It was just a team effort tonight. And I'm so glad we got our 12th straight win. If you guys are just joining, we're about 17 minutes in, and I'm joined by my friend of the channel, Supermariohoops24. Subscribe to his channel. Links down below in the description. And make sure to Hulk smash the like button on this live stream.
And be sure to check out his most recent video, because we did a trivia game as well.
Yes. So I was on a new episode of Super Mario Hoops Baloney Basketball, and we went for about an hour, and we talked all things NBA, which we're kind of going to do later in this live stream. But then he did a awesome trivia segment, and it was a lot of fun. I like the way that you edited it. I can't say that. And I like the way it turned out is what I'm saying. And it was a lot of fun. I think I did pretty well considering. Damn you, Bob Costas. I couldn't remember your name. If you guys watched the whole thing, you guys know what I'm talking about there. But yeah, I mean, there's so much more I want to talk about like in this game, but I don't really know what else to say. I feel like we covered it in just under 20 minutes. Sure, we could keep looking at the numbers and stuff, but I just don't really know what else to say, man.
I mean, I guess I don't know. Like, I guess we could talk a little about the Nuggets. Something. I don't know where we go with that, but I don't know. Like, they didn't really have a great game. Like, they shot horrible from the field, from 3. It seemed like they didn't really have much like coming out, and that's probably why Mike Malone's gonna be upset with them, is because like they just kind of came out lackadaisical when you give up that many points in one quarter. But seemed like Jeff Green was doing solid to start off. Aaron Gordon was, and then eventually he got tossed. But other than that, like they didn't really have much going for them either. So I don't know how to feel if I were like a Denver Nuggets fan.
Yeah, and I'm looking at some of their numbers right now. Will Barton's actually been playing pretty well for them. He was 4 for 15 tonight, 10 points. He didn't really play that well. Aaron Gordon got tossed, and sure, players are going to score when your best scorers are out. But yeah, Mike Malone's probably getting into them right now, and it's probably not a pretty sight. And I'm looking at their record. They're now 9-8. They're 5-6 or whatever in their last 10 or 11 games. But it's because of injuries. And this kind of reminds me of the Sixers right now. And a lot of teams in the NBA, like their best players are out. So I don't really know how seriously you can take these teams and injuries and records. And we could have a whole live stream about the standings right now. So
it's funny that you said that, because I was actually like just going to say it reminds me of the situation with the Sixers, because like Joel Embiid went out. They were the first seed when he went out. And then now they're like slipped into the play.
I'm not taking any Sixers game seriously until he comes back.
Right. And then the Nuggets, like now they've slipped into a spot where they're 9-8. I think they're tied with Portland. And we even talked about like on my show, like, oh, there's a pretty decent gap. Like when we were talking about Luka's injury, and I'm like,
Mhm.
there's a gap between 6 and 7. Well, now the gap is like closed already because they're tied with Portland for the 6-7. And Dallas is only half a game ahead of them. Lakers are only half a game behind. So now everyone's kind of like in that mix. So I don't know how I'd feel about them. They got the Blazers coming up on Tuesday and the Bucks on Friday. So those aren't going to be easy games either. So
Yeah, we'll probably have to look at the standings in a little bit. So Paul asks, "What's your opinion on Devin Booker having an up and down season?" He does this a lot.
yeah,
Uh,
he did it last year too, didn't he?
yeah. Oh God, I was his biggest critic last year. Don't even get me started on last year's Devin Booker. But this year, I think he's kind of better than he was last year. I mean, he's still doing his thing in terms of scoring, rebounding, and even assisting the ball. I feel like that's something that gets overlooked in Devin Booker's game is the way he rebounds and assists. I've never been the biggest fan of Point Booker, but he can do it. And I think I said this on my past live stream. I might have even said it on your show, is that it just shows the depth of this team. I mean, if Booker can just score 20 something points a game, we still win, then that shows it's like tonight. DeAndre Ayton, I think, was our leading scorer with 21 points, and we still won the game. And you mentioned like Chris Paul had 10 assists, and it's like this team is just so deep. So sure, Booker's probably going to have a lot of ups and downs. Right now, I don't know if he would be an NBA All-Star. He definitely wouldn't be a lock for an NBA All-Star. But like a lot of players are having weird seasons, and I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on Devin Booker and his season so far, or just anything you've seen or noticed, any takeaways?
Well, I don't think. See, I feel like people get too crazy with accolades sometimes because I believe the last
Facts.
2 years, then Booker made it as an all-star replacement, right? But he's still
Yeah,
an
last
all-star.
2 years.
But he's still like an all-star.
Yeah.
Like you still consider him an all-star player. You still consider Chris Paul an all-star player, and there's a bunch of other guys. But like, um, like I remember because he was having an up and down season last year, and he was compared a lot to Mitchell, and it looked like his stats were better. But now this year, like they're both kind of up and down. So I think it's just kind of a different situation. Like now, when you actually have more around you, because the
Yeah.
Jazz last year were a much better team. The Suns last year were a much better team. It's different than like when you had the teams where Booker had to score 50 or 60, even 70 on an occasion, and he still couldn't win because the teams just weren't that good. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's just a little weird.
This sounds extremely biased, and I don't know if you agree with me on this. And we'd obviously have to go back and look at the records and numbers and highlights and all that. But I would make the argument Booker was an all-star way before the bubble, way before the Suns got good or even decently good. You could make that argument. I mean, I've even made videos about how he was an all-star snub, in my opinion. But then again, you could say that about a lot of players. So
I think I actually made a video of when he didn't get named to the original team in 2020. I put him as one of those snubs, like in my own video. So, I mean, that just goes to show. And this is like before me and Suns Geek were even collabing.
Right.
So,
That was before I probably barely knew who you were back then.
yeah. So, yeah.
So I guess any final thoughts on this game? We can move on. We're about 25 minutes in. We can talk about what ESPN and all them are going to be talking about the LeBron fight, but just any final thoughts? Later, if you want, we can look at the standings. We can look at the Suns' upcoming schedule and all that, so we can get back to the Suns talk, but just any final takeaways on this game?
I mean, I'm not sure what we could touch on. I feel like
I don't know
every angle.
Exactly. All right, so we'll move on to what everyone has been waiting for on this show. That's the reason they clicked on this show, is to hear us talk about the LeBron versus Isaiah Stewart fight. And probably a lot of you are like, who the hell's Isaiah Stewart? Actually, a pretty intriguing young piece for the Detroit Pistons. I think he's actually a decent player, but let me just say this, and we'll dive all into it. I understand shit happens. Excuse my language. I understand shit happens on the court. We don't know what was said before that. We don't really know. There's been multiple angles of LeBron, getting a pretty good punch in there. But Isaiah Stewart, you kind of went a little overboard, man. And I'm not defending LeBron. I'm not defending Isaiah Stewart, but I mean, literally, he was being like escorted by like Cade Cunningham and a few other guys. They let him go, and then he starts running back again. I'm like, dude, that's going to get you at least a 5-game suspension fine. So what were your takeaways? What was your reaction to the LeBron Isaiah Stewart fight, if you will?
Well, I think like when you look at like Isaiah Stewart, of course, initially the dude's going to be extremely mad because I don't know if you saw the pictures of his face.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
he was bleeding everywhere. So, I mean, I'd be mad too.
Exactly.
I was actually, fun story, a week ago from tomorrow, so last Monday, I went to our rec center and I was shooting some hoops, and then I was playing some games. We were playing a 5-on-5. This guy smacks me like right here, and my nose is still like kind of bruised from it. And I just didn't say anything because I think I even told you, like, when I play, I just kind of don't get into that stuff.
Yeah, you're just into the game.
And this guy was like so mad. He's like, "Oh, like that's not a foul," and he was like freaking out. And then,
you're like, dude, you just popped me in the nose.
And then he came over. He's like, "Oh, that's my bad." He's like, I got too crazy or whatever." Like, but it didn't seem sincere at all. So I just didn't say anything to him. But I mean, I think here, like, yeah, when LeBron went back like that, it did look intentional. I think he wasn't trying to hit him in the face, but at the end of the day, like, you did try to intentionally hit him, and then you did hit him in the face. That's a flagrant 2, and that's an ejection. So, like, yeah, Isaiah Stewart, I would have probably, like, I guess if you're him, then it probably makes sense to go after him after that. Like, dude, like, you just made me like bleed all over.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, like, he started going like crazy, going back and forth. It's like,
yeah,
you know, LeBron's not going to fight you. I mean, he like was said, "Oh, I'm sorry," even if it was sincere or not. But then he basically just like shoved himself to the back of the crowd. So he's not going to try and like do anything to hurt you. So I think it was just kind of dumb. After that, he's probably going to get suspended for like a game or 2 or something. LeBron, I don't know if he will, because obviously, like, he didn't
escalate it.
Yeah, he just kind of did it, but it did. I don't know about you, but I did think it was kind of dirty.
About it. And that's where I said, like, I'm not defending LeBron. I'm not defending Isaiah Stewart because there's there's cameras everywhere. Let's be real. Sometimes the fans take better videos of what the courts and all that and the cameramen down there. But like, yeah,
but this isn't the first time that we've even seen LeBron do this. I think sometimes like when like certain pressure gets there, I still remember when he was playing my Bulls when they were on that 27-game win streak in 2013, and then we broke it that night. And I
think I watched that game, believe it or not.
Yeah, we had no Rose, Noah.
I remember that game.
He shoved right into Carlos Boozer. I mean, he didn't move him at all because, like, Carlos Boozer is literally built like he's jacked. But it was so intentional. Like, I mean, nowadays in today's NBA, he might have got thrown out for that,
right?
Just because like it's different. But I don't know. Like, we've seen him do stuff like this before, so it's something I guess that we need to consider as well.
And if I know the NBA like I think I do, they will have their people on this, and there's probably going to be multiple. They're going to slow down everything because I saw like a coach fall down, and Isaiah Stewart went nuts, and there is a few angles of where you can see LeBron clearly doing. I don't know if it was his elbow or fist, so they're going to look at it, but I don't really know if I have any other thoughts or takeaways on that. I'm glad they didn't favor LeBron in this, and I'm not trying to sound like a LeBron hater because, like, he's the king of the NBA. You think they'd probably favor him and not eject him. I'm glad they did. And I hope he at least gets suspended 1 game because that shows that nobody's untouchable, and he deserves it. And it was a dirty play, and I'm sure you could go on YouTube and find a LeBron's dirtiest plays, moments. I'm sure that video is probably out there somewhere. But again, and I'm not trying to pick on the young gun. I'm sure Isaiah Stewart's probably a nice guy all around, but not a good moment. That's, I mean, and I get it. Like, if I got popped in the face or in the nose, like you were talking about, how that happened to you, I'd be pissed off too. And I probably would have stormed the court and tried to, bulldoze my way through players and people. But that was a little overboard. 4 people were like holding you back. One being your teammate. Great job by Cade Cunningham, by the way, to show that maturity. And and all that. And it's not a good moment for Isaiah Stewart, in my opinion. So any other takeaways on that, fight? I
Yeah,
call it a fight, but like nothing happened.
I saw someone on Twitter, like, they did the meme where it was, like, Isaiah Thomas, he was, like, going crazy, and then they did, like, the rub your glasses thing, and it showed, like, Big Ben and Malice at the Palace, which I thought that was kind of funny. I don't know who tweeted that.
Right.
Um, but, yeah, I mean, I will ask you, though, do you think that maybe he went into, like, extra efforts, like, to make a point, make a scene like that just because it was someone like
Yep.
LeBron? Because, like, if it is a player like LeBron or if it's Steph or Durant or someone who has, like, a big name, a big brand, whatever, then they're probably more than likely going to be, like, the ones getting that
Yeah.
favoritism of those calls. So I guess, like, I'll ask you, like, do you think because of that and because he's one of those players, maybe it was something that he felt like was building up over the games? I mean, he was boxing him out when it happened, so he
Yep.
was obviously, like, on him a few times. Like, do you think that that was something maybe he thought?
And that's where I don't know if I should defend him or like not defend him, because maybe he thought, you know what? I don't care if you're LeBron or Michael Jordan or whoever. Like, I'm coming after you if you pop me in the face and I start bleeding. Yeah, you might be onto something there. If that answers your question, I think so. I think he wanted to get his point across. He did escalate it a little bit, but hey, I mean, you get popped in the face like that, and there might even be fines for maybe other players, not Cade Cunningham. I think he did a great job of trying to break it up, but players jump in. There's that photo of Russell Westbrook putting his fists up, like he might get in trouble. Like
Someone said he looked like the Notre Dame Fighting Irish guy. I thought that was funny. Which, by the way, go Notre Dame.
I'm a Russell Westbrook defender, but I don't know if I can defend that photo right there. And I've been trying to defend Russell Westbrook all season, but the Lakers are just a wreck. They're just, I don't care if they won tonight. They're not that good.
I mean, like, some people are saying like, oh, like LeBron got ejected. Now this is going to turn around the team. But it's like, is it? Because like this, you got to realize, like, yeah, I know some people on Twitter will think it sounds stupid if you go out and be like, oh, it's just the Pistons. But at the same time, like, this is the same Pistons team that just lost after they had a lead against the Warriors, who were missing Curry and missing Iguodala and missing Draymond.
Yep.
So like, I don't know, like you got to realize they're not a good team. So this doesn't tell me much of anything. Even without LeBron James, the Lakers still should be able really to blow out the Pistons.
Exactly.
In my opinion. I mean, they have a former MVP and they got Anthony Davis, who's supposed to be a superstar, a top 10 player in the league. So like just that alone should be able to get the job done. And now, oh wait, go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off, but as we saw tonight with the Suns, no lead is safe in the NBA, and really you can't take in unless it's like the Houston Rockets, who've won one game, I think, this season. It's like any team can beat you on any night. And this Pistons team, I was so wrong about them, but like they have some players. I think Cade Cunningham had a triple double tonight. And yeah, like you think LeBron getting ejected would motivate them to win, and they did. But the way I look at it is like if Chris Paul were ejected, I think the Suns would collapse mentally, because even Chris Paul, if he's having a bad game, he's still on the court. He's still there talking to the guys and being there. We saw that in the playoffs. When Chris Paul went out with the shoulder injury, he was still on the bench talking to the guys and keeping them composed. And you got to assume that's how it is having LeBron James, one of the greatest players of all time, as your teammate. So that's what I took away from what you just said right there. And we're 35 minutes in. I decided to crack open my second beer. It's just like, why not? I'm on vacation. It's almost Thanksgiving. The Suns are on a 12-game winning streak. So, yeah.
By the way, I was watching actually that game today, like the game 6 of that series last year. I feel like not enough people talk about like the Chris Paul situation.
Game 6 of
well, I was watching the game 6 recap of the Suns Lakers last year.
Yeah.
And I just feel like not enough people talk about like how Chris Paul like had the shoulder thing going on. They only want to talk about that AD, he missed a few games. LeBron wasn't 100%, which I mean, I don't know, like,
Injuries happen, but
yeah, and they just never bring that up. But
exactly.
I was gonna say also like how the Lakers this year, like their next few games, they got the Knicks and the Pacers. Both of them are on the road, but they're weird this year because remember over the past few years, like how good the Lakers have seemed on the road.
Yep.
Now this year, they're 2-4 as the road team. One of those just came tonight against Detroit, and the other one, I'm looking through their schedule, came against the Spurs in overtime. So those, I mean, yeah, good job getting the win, but those aren't really teams that tell me much when you beat them.
Yeah. It's I don't know. The Lakers are just I don't know. we'll have to see. So Amanda says bench had 56 points tonight. If they keep this up consistently, it'll be great for us. Exactly. And then Conan says, I feel like the Suns bench a lot more this year. It just feels much better. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I feel like that is yet to be determined because the Suns bench, I said this earlier, started off the season pretty bad and they've improved. But I remember last year, you could have a guy like Etuan Moore in there and he could literally win you a game like he did against the Spurs at the very end of the season. So I get what you're saying. And I do want the bench to be better because if this Suns bench is better than last year's, then we are going to be a very hard team to beat. But I feel like that is yet to be determined.
Etuan Moore is also one of my guys, but
probably should be in the league. I don't know if he is in the league.
Yeah, I mean, he should be on a team.
Right.
But well, I guess we didn't really talk about it here, but like, what do you think about the Frank Kaminsky news?
Oh, thank you. You are saving me on this live stream. I'm kind of off my game tonight, believe it or not. It's probably the beer that I'm drinking. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes.
What's Conan was talking about the bench, so I was like, they're probably not going to have him. So what do you think?
Thank you for bringing that up. Well, Monty Williams was talking about that before, and I don't know if he was just tired or if he was legit like upset. He was like, man, Frank's a big part of our team. He's like, he's a big part of our culture. And I 110% agree. Like, I feel like people slander Frank a lot when he's struggling, but the dude really is a big piece of this team. We saw that small stretch where he was really good. He had the career night. And even last year, he had some really good moments during the regular season. He had that 1 or 2 finals games where he was really good. And again, just a big culture guy. Chris Paul loves him. The whole team loves him, man. And this kind of reminds me of Dario Saric too. Like when Dario went down, the Suns were legit upset. They're like, Dario's a huge piece of this team. So it sucks. I think right now at the time of this recording, we don't know if it's for the rest of the season. Hopefully he comes back sooner. But even when he comes back, it might be a slow start, a slow recovery and all that. And hopefully he's back soon. I'll just say that.
Nobody's talking about him either. I think he could be a good addition when he gets back.
Like whether or not he's healthy or not, I don't know if we're going to go back to the finals, but it would help to have him because he is a third string center. He can have big games like we've seen. And sometimes Monty just puts him out there for size. Do you have any thoughts on the Frank Kaminsky injury? And hopefully he comes back soon. I really am wishing him the best.
I mean, well, I've always liked Frank ever since his days in Wisconsin. So
yep.
It's kind of a tough blow there, but I think that they should be fine. I mean, especially if JaVale McGee has solid nights like he did today. So that should be good. Of course, Frank also provides an element of floor spacing, but I mean, even Cam Johnson can kind of slide into that role. And he was shooting lights out today.
He's a better defender than Frank too.
Right. And he shot lights out for pretty much most of the playoffs. I think he was probably their most consistent shooter for the playoffs last year. So if it comes down to that and Frank's not available or he's not 100% in a must-win game, I mean, you got those two guys. I mean, JaVale McGee is a multiple-time champion too. So I think that they should be fine in the time being.
And I think the Frank Kaminsky thing makes me question if there could possibly be a signing in the future. I don't know if a trade would happen or yeah, right. Exactly. And I've said it multiple times that I feel like those trades are currently dead in the water. But then again, we're not even really close to the trade deadline. So anything could happen. And, buyout season is eventually going to happen. But I also wonder what John Wall.
Yeah.
You want him to come to your Bulls?
I mean, I don't know. The way Kobe White played today, I wouldn't want to mess with that.
I will say, though, I wonder if this is more minutes for maybe like a Jalen Smith, or maybe like Jay Crowder gets more minutes, or maybe even DeAndre Ayton gets more minutes. We'll have to see. Monty likes to take things game by game, and sometimes he'll play certain players like Frank Kaminsky a lot of minutes due to matchups and sizes and all that. So, but those are my two questions. I might have to make a video about that. Like, with Frank Kaminsky being out, are we going to see like more Jalen Smith, or is JaVale McGee going to get more minutes? Yeah, we'll have to see, man.
Never forget too, like when Frank was starting last year, you guys were invincible.
Yes, we were 11. Exactly. We were 11-2, and people overlooked that. John, I don't want to butcher your last name. I think John is an NBA content creator, and he's commented on a few of my videos. I think I've checked out a few of his too. So shout out to him. And Amanda says, I think Etuan plays. Oh, yeah. Etuan Moore does play for the Orlando Magic right now. I don't know how I felt about that. I don't know how I felt about letting Langston Galloway go either. I mean, those are kind of two big locker room and veteran guys for us. And Langston Galloway's a bucket. But, yeah. So moving on, if you want to talk about this, I don't know if you have any thoughts about this. These Sacramento Kings have fired Luke Walton after a 6-11 start. And you know what? I'm going to take responsibility here. I think I jinxed the Sacramento Kings. There's a past live stream I did where I said, the Kings are off to a good start. They're 5-5. Luke Walton loves the way they're playing right now. Well, ever since then, they've won one game, and I'm not even joking. They've lost 7 out of their last 8. And Luke Walton's record was 68-93 in 2+ seasons as the Kings coach. It's weird because I think he was hired in 2019, but it feels like he's been there a lot longer. Do you have any thoughts? And what was your reaction when you saw, Woj and Shams tweet out that he was fired?
I mean, it's about time, right? I mean, it's about dang time. I think well, it's true though. See, I don't really know. I never really got why they went after Luke Walton. It seemed like a complete bad idea from the beginning. If you remember, like in 2018, 2019, that was the year they had Dave Yeager as the coach, and they got the 9.
I like Dave Yeager, by the way.
Yeah, and they had the 9 seed at AllStar break. They were right there for the 8 seed with like the Clippers and the Lakers. They still ended 9th. They had their best season in like forever, right? And then out of the blue, they just decided to fire him the day after their season ended. I remember this because I remember looking at my phone. I'm like, what? And I was like confused. And then they get Luke Walton, who just got completely slandered for being the Lakers coach and all that stuff, and how they had a disappointing season. Like when LeBron said, oh, it's playoff mode time, and then they didn't make the playoffs. And everyone was talking about Luke Walton and how like, oh, he needs to go. So then you pick him up. It's almost like you're picking up like, I don't know if I should say this on here, but sloppy seconds.
Don't get canceled. No, just kidding.
Yeah. So, but that's what it seemed like. And it seemed inevitable that it was going to happen sooner or later. I just think it was. I think like Tristan Thompson came out and said something like, I don't need no like freaking coach.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you saw that. He was pissed.
And then I don't know if you saw De'Aaron Fox just the other day. I think it might have been after the most recent game. He said like they were asking questions or something about how like his connection with Luke Walton or whatever. And it's like, what does he need to do better? And then he kind of just like didn't address like, oh, he needs to do something better because like
he kind of like avoided the question. Would you say?
Yeah, like nobody's gonna just sit up here and like slander someone in their organization. But he's like, we all need to do our job, and he's like, we all know what's expected of us,
which he's not wrong about. But I get what you're saying.
And even he hasn't had a great season. But
oh yeah,
I think you could kind of get from that response. Like he looked irritated too. Like they asked him something else about like, is there a lot of pressure going on or something? He's like, I mean, it's not like we're in the playoffs. He's, and I'm like, yeah, and you won't be again this year, and you haven't been in like a decade and a half. So I don't know. It just seemed like a toxic thing that's finally come to an end. It didn't make sense when it happened, in my opinion, and didn't make sense that it even lasted for almost 3 years. And it's going to be interesting to see who the replacement is, because we know the Sacramento Kings, it's like when anything looks like it's going good for them, then it seems like it only goes worse.
See, I feel really bad for the Sacramento Kings, and I'm not just saying that. Like, I mean, you mentioned it, the 15, possibly 16-year drought of the not going to the playoffs. And
not possibly, it will be.
I joked about this. I said, you guys think the Suns' drought was bad, and don't get me wrong, it was, but it wasn't that bad. I mean, it could be a lot worse, like
honestly, as much as the Minnesota Timberwolves want to hate on Jimmy Butler, like they better be thanking him that
they made the playoffs, right?
They made it the one year when they were the Timber Bulls.
Yeah, exactly.
And they made it that year, but if they didn't, like they would have had the longest streak.
Yeah.
And it still would have been going. So they better be thanking him just for that.
Exactly. And I think they low-key should have kept him. Anyways, but yeah, the Sacramento Kings. So another reason I feel bad is because Romp gives me a bunch of shit for this, but I am a coach's guy. I wonder if Luke Walton is maybe just a victim of like bad circumstances. And yeah, Lakers coach and LeBron and everything. But I'm like, I just wonder if maybe he's just had a lot of bad luck. I honestly think maybe one day he could be a good coach. Maybe he'll take a break from coaching and come back a better coach. And I wonder if the Sacramento Kings team, who, by the way, I think it was confirmed today that it is Alvin Gentry, former Suns coach, by the way, who is going to take over. Maybe, this is very optimistic here. I'm optimistic, Suns Geek, today. Maybe we'll see now I'm not saying the Kings are going to make the playoffs. They probably won't, which sucks. But I wonder if we'll maybe see a Nate McMillan situation, where Lloyd Pierce was fired. The team clearly was not listening to Lloyd Pierce. And then, Nate McMillan takes over and they make the playoffs and went all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. Obviously, that's not going to happen with the Kings. If it did, this would be like NBA 2K or something. But just saying, maybe Alvin Gentry's that voice. Maybe they'll win a few games. They probably won't make the playoffs. Do you see that happening like at all? Maybe.
I mean, I don't know how you're gonna react to this, because I don't know what you think of him. I don't know how your chat's gonna react to this, but I've never been high on Alvin Gentry as a coach. I really don't think that he's that guy necessarily, and he hasn't really had
too much success
as the top guy. I think the last time it was when Kobe was going against you guys in the conference finals, and then he gave him a pat on the butt. So after he hit that shot, but like ever since then, it just seems like a lot of disappointment with him as the head coach. Seems like, I don't know if it's necessarily like a chemistry problem with him too, from what I've seen, but it just doesn't feel like the players that I've witnessed have ever really gotten much behind him, like in the past decade or so. And yeah, you could say like, oh, well, he's gotten here before, but I mean, there comes a point where you got to use recency bias. Like if it's just like this season or something like that, or last season, then yeah, that makes sense. It's too recent, but 10 years, I think that's quite a bit of time.
Yeah. And first off, Alvin Gentry is a very nice guy. He's got family in Arizona and friends, and pre-COVID, he actually used to kind of stick around after games and like hang out with his family and all that. And I actually got a chance to meet him once. But you are right. I don't really I don't have his record in front of me, but I don't really know how successful he's been in the league. But give him props. I mean, he's bounced around and been on a lot of teams and got years of experience. And I did kind of want to talk to you about this too, and Amanda brings this up. The Kings have some good players, but it's just something, or I can't read, but it's just missing something to make them that much better. I did want to talk to you about that. I have it in my notes here. And obviously, we both don't have all the answers right now. I wouldn't want to be Vlade and the GMs and the owners right now of the Kings, because they don't have all the answers either. In your opinion, what's it going to take for this Kings team to not really turn it around, but just do something to be relevant again and get some wins and give Kings fans, which, by the way, shout out to the real Sacramento Kings fans, like the fans that are there every game and watching. Like, what do the Kings need to do? Is it a Buddy Hield trade? Is it trading away all your draft picks to get some veterans in here? Like, what do the Kings need to do? I mean, Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, what's his name? Davion Mitchell, and a few other. Harrison Barnes has been playing pretty good. What do the Kings need to do, man?
Well, first of all, I will kind of agree with you on there, like about the shout out to Kings fans, because being in California, like, do you know how easy it would be, like, the bandwagon? I mean, you see, well, first of all, the Lakers are the Lakers. They're iconic. And then, like, the Warriors, like, this guy Steph Curry comes along and Klay Thompson.
Who's that?
And then the Clippers come along. Now they're more relevant than ever, really. So
they've been great the last few years. I don't care what their finals and playoff record says.
And the Kings, they're just kind of like the little brother. I even saw like a TikTok of this about like they're the little brother of the Pacific Division, someone said, and put that into like acting. So like props to them for still being Kings fans. I think they have the players that, like, first of all, I think that a guy like Richaun Holmes is probably like the most underrated player in the whole NBA.
He's been great this season. Former Phoenix Sun, by the way.
He reminds me a lot of Montrezl Harrell, except, I mean, he can even probably stretch the floor a little better. And I think he plays a little bit better defense more consistently. Now, I'm not saying he's necessarily better than him or anything like that, but I just think that those are probably the things that he even has an edge on him for. So
Richaun Holmes plays hard, and I can vouch for that as a Suns fan.
But, I mean, like you mentioned, they got Barnes, they got Fox. I think Fox has kind of taken a step back so far this year.
I forgot to mention De'Aaron Fox earlier, sorry.
He's going to have to step up his game. And I think guys like Tyrese Halliburton, Davion Mitchell, Buddy Hield, I mean, there's going to have to come a time where you decide. You know, like, you can't – I don't see any way where they could be successful where you keep all three of those guys. And I think that kind of probably leans toward what you were saying, a Buddy Hield trade. I mean, this guy is the oldest of the three, and I get he's done great things for them. He's probably a fan favorite at this
He's been pretty good this season too, considering.
And he was probably their best player, or at least, like, I think he averaged 20 points a game the year that they were close-ish to the playoffs. So that probably gives the current Kings fans like a little bit more feeling toward him, kind of like how the Warriors were with like Monte Ellis before Steph Curry, for example. So I think that, it'll be tough, but at the end of the day, if you want to start winning, you got to make tough decisions. And I pulled up actually Alvin Gentry's like coaching career, and he's actually made the playoffs 3 times, and he's been fired just as many times.
Oof.
Actually, he might have been fired a 4th time. Yeah, he was fired 4 times. It's just that it shows like the in-between one. So he's been fired more than playoff series or playoff appearances that he's had. So I don't know if that's necessarily the answer for the Kings, who I saw another stat today. The last 15 years, they made 0 playoff appearances, yet they've had 10 different coaches. So
and I do believe, you know, coaches can have a big effect on the game, but at the same time, there's players out there playing. So you got to wonder if it's maybe the roster and how it's being built and trades and free agency. And
I think like over the past 10 years or so, though, like almost every team in the NBA, you can kind of like pinpoint like, oh, he was their key coach over this time. But I don't think you can do that with the Sacramento Kings.
Thank you.
There's too many guys. Like, okay, was he the best coach? Or like, I think Mike Malone was there, and like Tyrone Corbin and Keith Smart. But like, dude, nobody remembers these guys. Nobody's going to remember Dave Yeager, Luke Walton in years from now. Like, it's not memorable at all.
I'm sorry to cut you off. That's what I wanted to say. And again, I sound like a complete coaches guy. Like I might be a little biased towards the coaches, but I'm like, when does it stop being, oh, we're just having a huge coaching problem, that's why we haven't been to the playoffs in 15, 16 years? Like, it's the players, man. It's whoever's running management and making these roster decisions. Like, And I'm not defending Luke Walton. Maybe if I was on the Kings team, I'd be like, yeah, fire him. I don't care. Like, but like, how many coaches do you need? And the Suns had this problem, man. Like before Monty Williams, we were changing out coaches and I'm sure the Timberwolves too had that problem. It's like, it just frustrates me. And I wish we could literally fast forward through time and just see where the Kings are at, because it's like, you're right. Who's going to be that coach? And how long are they? Because Luke Walton was there, 3 years? But like, it felt like 5. And I'm kind of a Dave Yeager defender. I felt like he did a really great job, but you're right. Like, no one's going to remember him. They're going to remember Rick Adelman, who actually led them to the playoffs and is a Hall of Fame coach and all that. And if you're a Sacramento Kings fan watching this and you're a real Sacramento Kings fan, shout out to you. That's my Kings rant. I had to get that off my chest. I legit feel bad for the Sacramento Kings right now.
I still think that the biggest mistake they could have made recently, well, I mean, there's a lot that we could talk about, like what happened.
Starting 5-5 and then winning one game after that.
Yeah, like you could talk about like them letting go of Isaiah Thomas and like the Rudy Gay issue, but I think the biggest thing, and it's probably the most obvious one, was, and it was a bad trade really for both ends, it turned out to be, but trading away DeMarcus Cousins. Because when they did
I had that in the back of my head. I was thinking that.
Well, when they did that, it's like, first of all, it just was awkward as can be. Because remember, he found out at the AllStar game. Like, dude, I'm enjoying my weekend, and then like my guy has to come over here and tell me, oh, you just got traded from the team you've been with for 7 years, like
the team that drafted you.
He grew up there and stuff. But I think that it didn't make sense because we all know like what's happened with DeMarcus since. Like the next year had a fluke Achilles injury, and seems like everything's been going downhill since. Although he still should be on an NBA team. I don't know why he isn't.
I know. I'm like, why isn't he? This guy's
I would gladly take him over Tony Bradley on my Chicago Bulls.
I would take
how I feel about Tony Bradley.
Yep.
But anyways, like I think that not only that, but even with the Kings, like if you would have kept DeMarcus Cousins, first of all, the Achilles thing again was a fluke, so it probably doesn't happen. Then, I mean, that year, it looked like he was going to bring him to the playoffs. Or he had him, I think, in the 8th seed for most of the season up to that.
There was one year where they actually were playing pretty damn good basketball. I don't know if they were a playoff team, but they were pretty damn good.
It looked like they were finally breaking through that year. And it was like, okay, if they're not going to make it this year, then the next year, the year after. And he had just committed, I think, to him. And they had committed to him. I remember Divock said, like, oh, like we're not gonna trade him, and then a week later it's like, all right, you're gone. So I don't get why that happened. Didn't really make sense. And now it seems like it's kind of karma biting him in the butt for getting rid of someone who actually wanted to stay loyal and be a loyal star for them. And the best player they've really had over the past decade too. So I don't know why they did that.
And shout out to the Clippers who gave him a chance last year. And again, he should still be in the league. And away from DeMarcus Cousins real quick, John says Rashawn really is up there for most underrated players in the league.
Correct.
Just continue to get better with a bigger role in Sacramento. Exactly. If I'm correct, he's averaging a double-double. I don't know if he is, but he was close to that. He's been playing very good for them.
I think he's at a 14-9 because I was checking today. I made a thread on Twitter with like who I think has been the best player on each team so far this year.
I gotta check that out, by the way.
And I put him on there, but I was thinking either him or Harrison Barnes probably. But I think so far he's probably been their best player on the team. He's actually, I just pulled it up, 14.2 points per game, and he's at 9.9 rebounds a game. So basically a double-double.
And look, I forget what his numbers were with the Suns, but this was a guy that played hard. He had effort. And this was back, when we were a 19-win team, and he was behind DeAndre Ayton most games. And this guy played hard and showed effort, and he put up the numbers. I think this season he had like a 20-20 game, if I remember correctly. He's been playing hard.
He's currently second in true shooting percentage in the league, behind only Rudy Gobert. So,
by the way, you guys, we have reached an hour into this post-game recap, which really has been an NBA discussion because there really wasn't much to talk about tonight. And
we talked about the game for like 30 minutes. So,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Shout out to my friend of the channel, Supermariohoops24. His link is down below in the description. He's a NBA content creator and good friend of mine. I appreciate you being on here, man. And thank you to everybody who's in the chat. We're just having a good time. We went on a little Sacramento Kings rant there, and we talked about the LeBron and Isaiah Stewart fight, and I think this has been a pretty good stream. Shout out to Coda Kid, Super Mario. If you don't know, Coda Kid has been subscribed to my channel since maybe before I had 100 subscribers. I'm not even joking. He's been here a long time. So shout out to Coda Kid. It's my guy right there, and he makes a good point. Sacramento needs a James Jones. Again, we talked about the coaches thing. Maybe it's a management problem. And by the way, Peja Stojakovic, I think, is the assistant GM of that team.
Yeah, and as much as I love Peja, I have I think he's in my top. I made a list a while ago, but I think he's in my top 20 favorite players ever. One of the greatest shooters ever, one of the greatest players ever, underrated. But when it comes to the front office, this dude, like, he needs to step it up.
Him and Vlade and whoever else is on that team of management, like, they don't know what they're doing, man.
I don't know if it's like they're cursed ever since, like, they lost that 0-2 Western Conference Finals. Like, they got robbed by the refs, and now ever since, like, they haven't figured it out.
I swear we could spend a whole live stream ranting about the Sacramento Kings. I just legit feel bad for them. And, you know, Amanda says, is DeMarcus Cousins in the league? I don't think he is. He definitely should be.
But he should be on the Chicago Bulls.
Sawbucks23, you know, another longtime subscriber of mine, says DeMarcus Cousins would look great in a Suns uniform. Hey, Suns need a backup center right now. Go get him. Seriously, take a flyer on him, if you will. Man. Holmes would have made a great third center on the Suns, says Sawbucks. I remember that. I remember when we let him go. I think he actually got arrested for something he didn't really do. I think it was like his friends or something, but we let him go. I don't know if that was like a Robert Sarver thing or I don't know, but I was like, man, we should have kept him. And
I think he would have been a great second center.
Yeah, right.
I mean, third center, like, I don't know.
He's better than that. But yeah, I'm just kind of reading the chat. Sticks got to play. All is great. Jalen Smith fans rejoice. Sawbuck says Sacramento could use former Suns GM Ryan McDonough. Isaiah Stewart wanted to put hands on the king. I don't blame him. Cousins doesn't like CP3. Is that true? I don't know.
I think I know they had an issue where, like, he flopped, like Chris Paul, like, flopped or something, like, after
like
DeMarcus was, like, getting into him. Yeah, as they call him, CP flop on Twitter. But yeah.
Sports Wikipedia says, who's your MVP of, I'm assuming, of the league? Off the top of my head, I'd probably have to look at the MVP race right now. I don't know. I mean, Giannis, Paul George has been playing great. Jokic has to be in the conversation. I don't know. I would have to really look into it to give you a full answer. Do you have an MVP right now?
I think, like, in terms of, like, what I think is the probably true definition of MVP, I think Jokic has probably contributed the most to his team. But, I mean, you know, everyone's going to say Curry. I forgot to mention Curry. Yeah, you're right. I know he's had a lot of great games, especially recently. But I think in terms of consistency, like, Kevin Durant's been the best player so far this year. So
the Nets have been playing better too.
Yeah, and I don't get why it's 15 games into the year. Why are we using records so seriously? Unless your team's like 1-14, like the Houston Rockets, then you're probably gonna be pretty fine, I'd say. I mean, the Nets, I think they're first in the East. So I don't know how that's something to disqualify him. I'd say KD right now, but you got Curry, Jokic, Paul George, DeRozan, like, those guys are up there. But yeah, John Morant, he's played good.
Speaking of that, I guess we could segue, because I think all the games are done for tonight, if I'm correct. So we're gonna dive into the standings, because I'm kind of guilty of all that, and hopefully it's updated. I'm not going to read you every record. I'm just going to read you some that stand out. As I mentioned, Brooklyn Nets are playing a lot better. They're 12-5. They're 8-2 in their last 10. From what I do know about the Nets. I think they've been playing pretty damn good defense, and I think that's why they've been winning. And obviously, you got Kevin Durant, James Harden, etc. I was talking to somebody who I had him on this channel. His name's Colin Hellwig. He actually covers the Nets and the Suns. And I made kind of a joke. I was like, this team could rebuild and still have some really nice young pieces because they really do. They're just loaded from top to bottom, in my opinion. I'm not saying they're going to win the NBA championship, but they're a really good team. Your Chicago Bulls are 12-5, 6-4 in their last 10. Any takeaways on the Bulls real quick? They're first in the East.
I think we can put the narrative to bed that we're some fluke team, some fluky good team. Like, I get it. It made sense early on when we played like the Pistons and Pelicans and the Raptors without Siakam. But I mean, now like we just swept LA and beat them so bad that now they have to change their name of their arena, the crypto.com center. But I mean, we beat both them. We beat Denver, just got the W against the Knicks today, who was one of our earlier losses in the season. Beat Boston in a crazy comeback. I'm blanking. Oh, we beat the Utah Jazz. So, like, we've already beat a lot of good teams. I know they're not all 100%, but, I mean, some of those teams, even if they're not 100%, like, are still really good. Some of them are supposed to be championship favorites, championship contenders.
Like the Nuggets, maybe. I mean, their record doesn't show up. They'll probably be one of the best teams in the league.
And even if we get a handicap from their injuries, it's like, they're still playoff teams. And we haven't even been 100% either. Like, we're missing Vucevic, Pat Williams. Now he's out for the whole season.
I feel bad for that, by the way. That sucks.
It does suck. And we were missing Kobe White for most of the games too. And it took him some time. Tonight, I think, was like the first game we saw like a real Kobe White because he was insane in the fourth quarter. And you're going to see more of that, I think, as well. So am I saying the Bulls are going to win the championship? No. Am I saying I would like them to? Yes. But that's just my take on it.
I mean, obviously, you know a lot more about the Bulls than I do, but I kind of jumped on their bandwagon. I liked what they were built. I think I talked to you about this on your show, the Baloney Basketball. I said, right when they got Nikola Vucevic, I was like, they were building something pretty special. They had an incredible offseason. And I think I don't know if it was the media or fans. I think maybe they were just scared of what this team could be. And I've said this before. I'll repeat it all season. I think if the Bulls can put it together defensively, they'll be a really good team. I love Lonzo Ball. I love Zach LaVine. I had a good feeling he'd probably be an all-star one day, and he is, and he's great. And you guys just got a lot of – that's what sucks about the Patrick Williams injury. It's just you got so much younger talent on there, guys that I'm probably forgetting about, and I really like your Chicago Bulls.
Well,
just naming.
I will say the good thing about Patrick Williams is they say it's supposed to be like 4 to 6 months, so he could come back before the playoffs. Although, like, if it's right around playoff time, don't know how I feel about that. Like,
that's how it is with the Dario Saric injury right now.
Yeah,
like they're thinking maybe playoffs, but do you really want to bring him back?
Like when the Celtics in the bubble or the Bucks in 2019, like they added like Hayward and Brogdon, and then like it seemed like it was kind of like a lot to deal with. So I don't want to have something like that, and then it just like ruins us, if that makes sense.
Right. So I'm looking at some other records here. Washington has been arguably the surprise team of the NBA so far. They're 11-5.
And they just beat Miami the other day too, which I was surprised with because they were losing like most of the game.
Speaking of Miami, they're 11-6, which obviously is a good record. They're 5-5, and I'm like, I feel like they're going to be really good down the road. But still, 11-6 is a great record. A team that I've kind of been overhyping, but they've been playing pretty well as of late. The Charlotte Hornets are 10-8. And then you got teams like the Cavs and Bucks and the Knicks and the Celtics. I think the Celtics have actually played pretty well lately. They're 7-3 in their last 10. Again, I'm not taking any Sixers game seriously until Joel Embiid comes back. Once he's healthy, they'll probably be very good again. Tyrese Maxey's playing very well. The Hawks, they've won 4 straight. Raptors started off the season very good. I have no clue what's going on with the Raptors. I can't even tell you. And then the poor Detroit Pistons, 4-12, should have beat the Lakers tonight. Magic are 4-13. Moving on.
Well,
The Warriors.
I think you
Go ahead.
forgot a team in there, and the most disappointing team this whole season, I'd say,
Pacers.
Indiana Pacers. I don't
Tell me,
get
man,
it.
what's going on with the Pacers? Do they need a trade?
The problem I see with the Pacers, I've watched a lot of their games so far this year. I think probably I've watched them, and they're in my top 5 most watched teams so far this year. And you might think like, oh, Super Mario Hoops, you're crazy. No one cares about the Pacers. They're
You're
boring.
cheating on your Bulls.
But what I see, no, I just like I am in Indiana, so I guess there's that. But what I see from the Pacers is just like at the end of their games, they're horrible at closing out. And you could see this from like the first game of the year. Like they were up like 20 on Charlotte, and then boom, the lead went away. They did the
I
same
remember that game actually.
They did the same thing at like the next 2 or 3 games, and they started off the year horrible. They just don't look together at all. They look like a dysfunctional team altogether. And it sucks for them because, yeah, they've had injuries, but I think really when they're healthy, like they have 3 seed potential.
Wow.
Like I think if they're fully healthy, like I wouldn't be surprised if they had a better record than my Bulls, because I think that the Nets and the Bucks, those are probably the top 2 teams in the East. But after that, like if the Pacers, you got to look up top to bottom, like Brogdon, LeVert, Warren, Turner, Sabonis. They got Holiday off the bench, McConnell off the bench. They just added Torrey Craig.
Solid players.
O'Shea Brissett, like he's extremely underrated.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a stretch big too. Batadze. Like they just got a lot of guys. I think that they probably have one of the best groups of players, just doesn't go together well. And I don't think that Rick Carlisle is able to fix whatever problem there was last year that maybe like Nate Bjorken created or like instigated a little bit.
Glad you actually know that name.
Yeah.
Because he's a former Suns assistant. Very nice guy, but he had a miserable, terrible season with the Pacers.
Oh, it was
bad. Terrible. And I couldn't even defend him. It was that bad. Like players.
He was almost on pace with what's his name? Luke Walton. Yep. Just got fired. Like it was just that bad.
Yeah.
But it sucks because the Pacers, like they're really talented, I think. But
something's not clicking. Something's not coming all together with all that talent.
I honestly, and this might be like a hot take, but I think in terms of talent wise, like they got more all around than Boston.
Boston, that's a team, in my opinion, that just has so many question marks. Like, yeah, Jaylen Brown's been out, and he's obviously a key piece to that team, and they had like a players only meeting, and is it M.A. Udoka? Is that how you pronounce it?
It's Udoka, I think. I saw him pronounce it the other day on TV. They're like, "This is how you pronounce it." I'm like, I don't really care. Like,
he's obviously in a really interesting situation. First year head coach Brad Stevens, don't forget, is still up there in upper management, and it's like, I don't know.
I just hate how like the media,
a lot of question marks around that team,
but there always is. You know, like you could go back 3 years ago and they said, Kyrie's the problem. So what they do, they got rid of him. And then the next season, Gordon Hayward, like it doesn't fit here. So they got rid of him. And then the next year it's like, Kemba, like he's not what we need. So they got rid of him. And they even blame Brad Stevens some. Now he's not that coach. So like, what's the reason why they're not up there? Like, yeah, it's one thing, even if you're in the playoffs, like you could say like, oh, it doesn't matter. But why aren't they up there like with the Nets and with the Bucks and with the 76ers when they have Embiid? When they're all together, it just doesn't make sense to me, because they were up there. You know, they'd made the conference finals like 2 of 3 years. Now it just seems like they're kind of like going downhill a little bit.
Yeah. And maybe they gave up on Kemba too early. Maybe. But like, I don't know if Kemba solves all of your problems. Yeah.
I mean, like with Kemba Walker, like he has his own struggles with New York.
Yeah, he hasn't even been that. I don't know. Go ahead.
I mean, I could get into like why I think D Rose should start, but let's not get into that because I have a lot to say there. But anyways, like with Kemba, like people forget like his first year in Boston, he was an all-star starter. You know, like he was playing really well. I think he was averaging like 25 a game for him. So like this is just we think back to before the bubble. and March 11th was the day that the league got suspended. It's
Ugh,
November 21st,
that was a
2021,
hell of a day, by the way.
right? But that was only 20 months ago, right? 20 months ago, Kemba Walker was an all-star starter averaging 25 points per game. And instantly in 1 year, they
Fell off.
just they put all the blame on him. Like they didn't even try to work it out. And I feel like it's kind of just maybe the blame game that's going on. That's kind of like what I got from Marcus Smart's comments too about
I remember that
Tatum and Brown.
when he sounded off. Yeah.
Like whether he was right or wrong, like it just seems like there's something going on where it's like no one takes accountability to an extent.
Just real quick, Western Conference, obviously the Warriors and the Suns are the top two teams right now. A team that I haven't really been paying too much attention to, and I probably should be, the Jazz are 11-5. Clippers, Mavericks, Nuggets, kind of all there in that 4th through 6th, or really it goes down the list. I mean, like Portland and LA are 7 and 8 right now, but you know, the Grizzlies are right there, and even the Timberwolves, believe it or not, 7 and 9, and they've won 3 in a row. So I feel like there's a small gap from 3 to like 10. Those are just some records that are standing out. You know, Thunder 6 and 10, but then it just drops from there. There's a lot of losing streaks currently in the bottom of the Western Conference right now. I mean,
they're all losing streaks outside the play.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we talked about this on your show and even here and in the past, like there's just not that much room from like where the Clippers are, even all the way down to the Timberwolves. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking way too into the records. Maybe I need to pay attention more to what the Jazz are doing, but I'm just like, you go on a winning streak and the standings could change really, even a losing streak. Standings could change like that. I don't know if it's like that for the Eastern Conference, but
and we just talked about that too with like the like 6-7 seed, like how a few days ago it was so far away, now it's close. I feel like though, you know, we know like how Damian Lillard outside of like last game, he struggled for the most part of this season. And I remember like you and Romp and Reliable and you guys all clowned me when I said my hot take is the Blazers are going to be a top 3 seed.
I still think you're crazy for that.
But if you think about it, right? If Dame was playing like Dame, they probably have 3 or 4 more wins right now, right?
Right.
And that would put them almost where the Suns are, or right behind them.
Probably right by the Jazz and Clippers.
I think, 3 more wins would put them at 12-5. So that's above Utah. That would be top 3. So, I mean, no one could have expected this to happen, I think. But I don't know. I think that's probably the most impressive thing to me is that, like, everyone's clowning the Blazers, saying, like, oh, Dame needs to get out of there. But in reality, like, they're still 7th. They're really tied for 6th. And they're not that far back of the 4-seed Clippers. So,
and I don't really know if this matters much. And it's still early in the season, but I was looking at the numbers a little closely for the Blazers. They're actually 8-1 at home. That's pretty damn good. Now their road record's terrible, and they score as many points as they give up, 109 per game. But that's something that stood out. I was looking at the standings. I started looking at the home record. They're 8-1. That's pretty damn good. And I think Dame had a game recently where he kind of went off. It's like players getting slumps. Like, you know, Devin Booker hasn't been that great, and tons of other players are struggling right now. It's like, I don't know. We'll see.
And I was watching their game the other day. So their first loss at home was their first home game this year. So they're on an 8-game winning streak right now at home.
Wow.
But I think like when you look at that, like with the home and road thing, it's only the top 4 teams, top 2 in each conference, like your Suns, the Warriors, the Nets, and my Bulls are the only kind of 4 teams that are like playing well both at home and on the road. You know, like it seems like every other team, like it's kind of like lopsided in one way or the other. Or if you're the Houston Rockets, like you just kind of suck at both. So, but I think that's kind of interesting too.
Well, I think this has been a great all-around NBA conversation. We obviously covered probably for about the first 30 minutes of the Suns and Nuggets game, which was a blowout. The Suns have won 12 straight, which is insane. They are, 6 games away from tying their record of 17 in a row. I'm not good at math, but if that's correct. Upcoming schedule tomorrow, they play the Spurs at San Antonio. Probably a win. They're not that good of a team. Then Cleveland, maybe a win, and then New York. I don't know. I think you mentioned something about New York earlier. I don't know how I feel about that team right now. Brooklyn might be a real challenge. Then we got Golden State, Pistons, who obviously can put up a fight. No pun intended. And then Golden State, December 3rd. We could, I don't know. What do you think? We kind of talked about this before, but like for those who may not have heard that, what do you think of the Suns' upcoming schedule?
Well, I think they should for sure beat the Spurs and the Cavs. I mean, the Cavs.
I hope they don't go in there thinking, "Oh, we're gonna win. Let's just take our foot off the pedal."
The Cavs, like they could like put up a fight, like you said too, but at the same time, it's like they got so many guys that are like out. Like they're missing Mobley and Sexton. Like those are big ones. I mean, that's your primary scorer and like kind of your primary big. I'd say
a great all-around player in Evan Mobley.
I mean, as great as Jared Allen's been, I think that probably Evan Mobley's the best big on the team. But then you get into the Knicks, the Nets, Warriors, Pistons, Warriors. And then after that, there's just a lot. But I think that they'll probably split with the Warriors for sure. But
that's what I was thinking too.
I don't know. I just feel like it's totally like a New York Knicks thing to win a game like that after playing like trash, it seems like, for most of the season. So that's personally where I think it'll probably end. I think it'll end after 14. But again, if they like, I wouldn't be surprised because they're better than the Knicks, I think, just in general. And then like against the Nets, I mean, that'll be a tough one, but who knows? Like the Nets had home court advantage against the Warriors, and it didn't really do much for them. And then the Warriors again twice, they can figure them out. The Pistons. So yeah, I think if they can get to 17 and they got to play Detroit for 18 for the franchise record, I think they should be sitting pretty good in at least accomplishing that.
Yeah, I've talked to you about this before. I'm definitely looking forward to this upcoming schedule, just because a lot of these teams that we just talked about are fairly good, and a lot of these teams probably will make the playoffs, like the Cavs, Knicks, Nets, Warriors, etc. Going deeper down, Boston, Clippers, etc. I'm just literally looking down the schedule. It's going to be fun. I guess the exciting thing is whenever this losing streak does come to an end, it's just one game. And the Suns will bounce back, and it's going to be a great season for the Suns. So any final thoughts, Super Mario Hoops 24? I think we're going to close it out. Anything going on your channel that you're looking forward to? You want to plug, your channel and all that social media?
Well, the last thing I'll say about the Suns is they can go on a 36. They can add 36 more wins to their streak for all I care, because as long as they lose on February 7th, I'm fine with that. But no, like
we gotta go live that game. We gotta go live together,
and that'll be a good one. But anyways, I mean, again, thank you for having me on the live stream. I thought that it was pretty good.
Yeah, man.
I think it ended up going pretty well too. I make NBA content as well. If you guys don't know by now, have my own channel, do a show every week. And then whenever I got time, I might make like some other videos, past or present. So there's that.
Yeah. Shout out to my guy, Super Mario Hoops 24. His link is in the description. Check out his channel for all things NBA. You recently had a NBA history segment, or not a segment, a whole series. Which I'm a big NBA history guy, and you literally broke it all down, like the 50 greatest players, and just all your content, man. You and I had a full episode with each other, Baloney Basketball. We talked all things NBA. Go check that out. Links down below in the description. Follow Super Mario Hoops 24. I'm sure I'll get you back on the channel as soon as possible. And I think that's about it, guys. I'm excited for the Suns upcoming season and just the road trip that's going to be happening soon. And we'll see how long this winning streak goes. But for right now, it is 12 in a row. And I don't know if I got anything else to say except for Hulk smash that like button. I haven't really been plugging that too much in the stream. Hulk smash the like button. All the links are down below in the description. Follow Super Mario Hoops. Follow me. Follow us on social media. Subscribe to our channels. And I think we had some pretty good stuff here. I might clip some of this stuff and upload it, even if it's not Suns related. I think our Sacramento Kings rant was pretty good. And man, I just love the NBA.
It's always good when the Bulls are winning.
Yeah, it's always good when the Bulls are winning. Phoenix Suns are winning right now. Last thing I will ask you before we get out of here is because I don't know when I'm doing a live stream again. It might be soon. It may be a while. What do you got going on for Thanksgiving, man? What's going on?
All right. So for Thanksgiving, it's like a yearly tradition that I always go to my grandma's house with all my aunts, uncles, cousins, and basically everyone. But that's usually like during the evening, and that's like on my mom's side of the family. So that's how we spend like the evening.
Awesome.
And then Wednesday night, I celebrate Thanksgiving like with my dad and stuff and all that jazz. But I'll be going home after Tuesday. I have this meeting, and then I get to drive 3 hours back home. So that's gonna be exciting. I get to go back home, and then I don't have to come back till like Monday. So it's kind of like I'm on vacation as well, just like you over there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of school districts where I live right now and in Arizona where I'm from, because I work in a school district for those who may not know. Usually it was just a couple of days off. Lately, they've been giving us a week off. So I am celebrating. I'm excited. That's why I drank a couple beers tonight. Probably why I was off my game. Thank you for saving me a couple times in the stream. Yeah, I'm just enjoying the time off. My family is off for the most part as well. Sister's flying in. Gonna have a great Thanksgiving. Just thankful that the family's healthy. I'm thankful I'm healthy. I'm thankful that we have such a crazy yet awesome sport in basketball to talk about whenever we want. And appreciate the little things, you guys. I don't mean to preach to you guys, but appreciate the little things because they're big things nowadays. So I hope you and your family have a great Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you guys. Hopefully I'll go live before Thanksgiving and maybe we'll talk about our favorite foods and all that. And yeah, so make sure once again to check out all the links down below in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. If it has to deal with the Phoenix Suns, I'm going to make a video about it. Hulk smash that like button and I'll see you guys next time. I pressed the wrong thing. Here we go.